weren't they? What is the evidence that's been seen around those implications of UNRWA workers and their involvement in the October the 7th Hamas attacks?
So, Israel and UNRWA for decades have worked together, cooperating. There were periods of ups and downs over the years, but certainly October 7th was the crossing of a red line from an Israeli standpoint. As you've mentioned, these employees, some employees, were involved in the actual Hamas attack on Israel on October 7th. So there's clear evidence that Israel holds that the U.S. has corroborated as well and reached the same conclusion, that certainly UNRWA has taken steps. UNRWA employees have actually participated in terrorist activities and have also actually helped harbor terrorists or allow terrorists to conduct activities from their facilities. So for Israel, this was the point in time where it reached the conclusion that business as usual approach towards UNRWA cannot work, and it needs to change its approach. And that's why it has decided to cut all ties with the organization and not allow it to operate inside Israel. That does not apply to the territories, but inside Israel.
So what is that going to mean for the people of Gaza and their attempts to rebuild their lives and get that aid that's desperately needed? There are lots of aid organizations that do operate in Gaza.
Certainly, this doesn't help the people of Gaza, unfortunately, but there are underway efforts by the United States and Israel to look for alternative ways or alternative groups and organizations that can take over UNRWA's assignments and mission and can help the people of Gaza. Certainly the devastation, destruction, deaths that were described by the previous speakers need to be addressed. This is a process which should take many, many years to complete rehabilitation, reconstruction, and therefore there needs to be an alternative found for UNRWA's operations. At this point, I think UNRWA will continue to operate until a different solution is reached, which is acceptable for the U.S., Israel, and the UN.
And what would that solution, do you think, look like?
It's relying on UNRWA infrastructure, on the facilities it has, on some of the employees it has, but it will require a code of conduct and a commitment by whoever takes over that its employees cannot engage in terrorist activities and would be devoted solely to the mission of humanitarian aid to help the people of Gaza.
I suppose the difficulty is at the moment, we don't know what the future of Gaza is going to look like, but Hamas has controlled that territory for many years. They are the elected government. So perhaps some would say, well, if they are the government and people work for the government and they work for UNRWA, that there is a huge conflict there. So it's going to be possibly difficult moving forward when so many people were employed by UNRWA.
First of all, they're not the elected government. They took over forcefully control of the Gaza Strip in 2007, ousting the Palestinian Authority, which legally controlled the Gaza Strip. So they were not elected in any way to govern over the affairs of Gaza. But putting that point aside, certainly this is not going to be an easy process, and we're just underway with this very sensitive, very delicate ceasefire, which was just achieved just a couple of weeks ago. This process of hostage release and Israeli withdrawal and other aspects that need to be addressed. And this will be taking place over a period of time, over the next few weeks and months. And once that process is over, we can really start looking in a serious and thorough way at actually beginning the reconstruction and rehabilitation efforts with the main point that the U.S. and Israel are making is that Hamas needs to be removed from the equation. Hamas can no longer be the controlling power in the Gaza Strip. And in this sense, Israel, I think, made the wrong move by not making sure to prepare a day after plan, which will allow the replacement of Hamas and bringing a different Palestinian entity into effect and governing over the affairs of Gaza.
Dan Arbel, thank you very much for being with us.